In the league, everybody talks. The veterans, the rookies, the front office, they all know the score. There's a silent roster in the NBA, a specific rotation of women who view players less like partners and more like stepping stones. It's not dating. It's a circuit. These women get moved from city to city, franchise to franchise, trading up like they're chasing a max contract. Their mission isn't love, it's securing a permanent spot in the rotation before their own clock runs out. The situation has gotten so out of hand that even the erratic heartbeat of the league, the old guard, has to step in. Michael Jordan, a man who rarely acknowledges the noise, couldn't keep his mouth shut. When pressed about Larsa Pippen, Scotty's ex, crossing the line to date his own son, Marcus, Jordan didn't offer a PR-friendly soundbite. He gave a cold, hard no. A single word that confirmed what everyone suspected. She's worked the entire floor, and the GOAT wasn't signing off on it. But he didn't just leave it at a one-word denial. The frustration ran deeper. According to sources close to the inner circle, Jordan was legitimately disturbed. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was pity. He reportedly looked at Larsa's children and saw the collateral damage of a mother who treated the league's roster like a buffet until she landed on his family's payroll. Larsa's just the warm-up act, though. The league has seen darker plays like the woman who tried to leverage a blackmail scheme for a payout, or Da Michelle, who reportedly scouted her target while he was still playing high school ball. But if we're talking about the veterans of this game, you have to start with the ringleader, Khloe Kardashian. You look at the stat sheet of her relationships and you have to pause. It's not just bad luck. It's a pattern. You start asking, how does the scouting report look the exact same every single time? With Khloe, it's not a dating history, it's a transaction log. She moves through the NBA personnel list with the efficiency of a general manager looking to fill a cap grim space. When you break down the film, the evidence is overwhelming. The timeline doesn't lie. Rewind to 2008. Before Tristan Thompson became a household name for all the wrong reasons, Khloe locked in on Rashad McCants, a gifted guard out of North Carolina, young, hungry, with the world in front of him. They ran together for a few months between 2008 and 2009. At the time, it looked like a standard rookie mistake, a high-profile celebrity pairing that grabbed headlines but lacked substance. The aftermath, however, was telling. McCants didn't just walk away. He limped away. He went on record stating that the relationship was the poison in his career, giving coaches and GMs a valid reason to question his commitment. That was the first red flag, but everyone ignored it. Then came the franchise player, Lamar Odom. This wasn't a fling. This was a dynasty attempt. They met at a party in 2009 and were married 1 month later. 30 days. That's a shorter preseason than most teams get. They went from introductions to a binding legal contract before the ink was even dry. They capitalized on the momentum immediately, launching a reality show that framed the chaos as a modern love story. For a minute, it looked like they had cracked the code Hollywood glam meets NBA grit. But the locker room talk started early. The chemistry was off. Rumors of a trade divorce started circulating long before the official press release. The split was messy, dragged out by legalities and hesitation. The divorce papers were filed, but the separation lingered for years, unresolved until 2016. Khloe finally executed the exit strategy only after Odom hit rock bottom. In 2015, he was found unconscious in a Nevada brothel, an overdose that nearly put him in the grave. She paused the divorce to oversee his medical recovery, blurring the lines again. Even after the legal ties were cut, the dynamic remained awkward. There was a televised reunion that felt less like closure and more like a forced post-game handshake. Hello? Hey? Oh, Khloe? Oh, you have yourself on your shirt. How you doing? Nice to see you. Thank you. Is it this close? How are we going to talk to each other? Oh, sorry. Do you need some water? The tension was palpable. But just when you thought she might retire from the game, she picks up James Harden on waivers. Harden, the step-back king, wasn't exactly known for his discipline off the court either. They linked up around 2015 and lasted about a year. They split, and the post-game analysis was clear. They didn't click, which, in Harden's language, meant he wasn't willing to run her plays. He saw the defense and opted out. Then came the era that turned this drama into a full-blown psychological thriller. Tristan Thompson. They started their run in 2016, and the red flags were flying from day one. This wasn't just a relationship, it was a public spectacle. Thompson was already active on another roster. His ex-girlfriend was pregnant when he and Chloe started their rotation. That's a violation of the code right out of the gate. For a woman who had been burned by toxic locker rooms before, you'd expect better defense. Instead, she drove right into the paint. The bill came due in 2018. Days before Chloe gave birth to their daughter, True, footage leaked of Thompson with another woman in New York. The question isn't why did he do it? The question is, did she really not see the scouting report? She acquired him through a vacancy created by infidelity. Why would she expect loyalty? The saga didn't end there. They split, reconciled in 2020, got engaged in 2021, and then imploded again when it was revealed he fathered a child with a personal trainer while still on Chloe's roster. After that level of disrespect, you'd think Chloe would ban NBA players from her life permanently. Not a chance. In 2025, she was spotted at a family gathering for Tristan's younger brother, Amari. This wasn't a private, behind-closed-doors visit. The paparazzi were tipped off, the cameras were rolling, and the league collectively rolled its eyes. We know this playbook. It's the soft launch of a return. Nobody is saying she's putting a hex on these guys, but the data is hard to ignore. When you stack the roster McCants, Odom, Harden, Thompson, and look at the wreckage left behind, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's a statistical trend. She knows it, too. On Time's Jimmy Kimmel Live *, she laughed off the accusation that she has a specific type, but the humor was thin. Yeah. Is it time to stop dating basketball players? I like what I like. What can I say? Yeah, that's Khloe Kardashian. A career of high-profile signings and disastrous seasons. But she's just the setup, man. The next woman makes Khloe's rotation look like a preseason scrimmage. Naturally, it's another name from the same family tree. You might think Kendall Jenner is just posting harmless photos. But when you actually connect the dots on her depth chart, you realize she's playing a much more advanced game. It starts quiet. A few courtside appearances, maybe a dinner in West Hollywood, then you look up, and the narrative shifts from casual dating to a full-blown scouting report where every new name forces you to reevaluate the entire franchise history. The noise really hit a fever pitch in 2019. That's when the rotation talk stopped being whispers and turned into a viral roar, anchored by one specific graphic that refused to die. Someone mocked up a starting lineup. 5 guys, all connected to the same source, laid out like a fantasy draft board. Blake Griffin at the 4, Ben Simmons running point, Jordan Clarkson, Kyle Kuzma, Devin Booker. The caption didn't pull punches. The starting 5 of NBA players Kendall Jenner dated. Most celebs let that slide. Kendall didn't. She fired back on Twitter, and that reaction didn't just acknowledge the noise, it validated it. She knew exactly how the game was being played. That was the spark. The moment the subtext became text, blowing the lid off a conversation everyone was having in private. Technically, the official record only shows Griffin and Simmons as confirmed starters. But we're looking past the press releases. We're breaking down the tape on the other 3 to see what really happened. Roll the tape back to 2017. Blake Griffin. The Clippers era. They were seen courtside, locking eyes, matching intensity. It wasn't subtle. It hit different because Kendall usually plays elite defense on her personal life. She doesn't give you angles. She doesn't give you quotes. She told Vogue in early 2018 that the silence was strategic. You let the world in, things get messy, attention breaks the rhythm of a real relationship, but dodging paps and sneaking into backroom dim sum spots is a temporary fix. You can't outrun the fan base when they smell a story. Secrecy just builds the appetite. It makes the hunt better. Then you pivot to the Ben Simmons chapter, the guy whose own bloodline would later make sure nobody forgot he was on the roster. Yeah, you heard that right. Late 2025, Olivia Simmons, Ben's sister, hops on TikTok. She's not talking stats. She's talking domestic failures. A story about Kendall trying to bake cookies for game night and bricking the shot. She painted a picture of the Kardashians and Jenners that wasn't glamorous. It was just off. A clash of cultures that never really meshed. But the cookies aren't the point. This is where the timeline tightens up and you start seeing the pattern develop into something undeniable. Post Simmons, she picks up Devin Booker in 2020, and this wasn't a fling. This was a franchise player situation, real stakes. She brought him to Kourtney's wedding in Italy in 2022. Sitting courtside at Suns games, looking like part of the team, that's a level of buy-in she hadn't shown before. Then, just before Thanksgiving that year, the buzzer sounds split. The official line was schedules and lifestyles, the classic irreconcilable differences of the NBA elite. But even after the final whistle, the speculation didn't stop. Rumors of a reunion started bubbling up in 2025, proving some plays are hard to move past. So you have the Griffin to Simmons to Booker progression. Now, throw a wrench in the gears. Kim Kardashian, her own sister, took that starting five graphic, printed it on a t-shirt, and wore it on TikTok while doing her daughter's hair. That is aggressive. It compounded the issue of video surfaces of people trying to name the full seven-man rotation. Not five, seven. The prompt was simple. Name the 7 NBA players linked to Kendall Jenner. Jordan Clarkson comes up. He's the 6th man in this scenario. Then the last spot. The curveball. The guy who had a cup of coffee with the Knicks and vanished from the casual fans' radar. Chandler Parsons. Retired. A name that pulls you deep into the archives. Parsons, it feels like a different era. The funny part is, Kendall has moved on to musicians. Guys like Bad Bunny. Totally different bracket. Yet the NBA narrative hangs over her like a retired jersey. It's the story that won't fade, no matter who she stands next to. That shows you the staying power of the league association. But the next woman on our list, she didn't just spark memes. She lit fires. She had Terrence Ross stepping out while he was trying to salvage a family situation. And that drama? That's just the pre-game warm-up. We're talking about Amber Rose. If you thought Kendall's starting five was chaotic, you haven't seen this playbook. Lock in. Because this is where the lines get blurred between messy and legendary. Amber Rose's NBA scout sheet begins with Terrence Ross. We're not trading Twitter rumors here. Ross was clocked with Amber at multiple spots after All-Star Weekend in 2016. Hard evidence. They weren't hiding. Heavy contact. Visibly close. The paparazzi were shooting it like it was Game 7 of the finals. The problem? The timing. Ross was reportedly still in the paint, trying to figure out co-parenting logistics with his child's mother. So, the optics were brutal. Amber looked like the interference, while the man was trying to run a recovery play on his home life. That's just one data point. Fast forward, and Amber gets linked to Iman Shumpert. 2024. Miami. Amber Rose is spotted with Shumpert right after his highly publicized split from Teyana Taylor. Cameras catch the chemistry. Laughing, leaving together, the internet sees the spacing and immediately calls a foul. Shumpert had to go on defense. He hits TMZ to run spin control, claiming the just friends angle. But the public wasn't buying the scouting report. The reporter pressed him. Can you clear the lane for us? You guys, friends? Or is this something else? Shumpert tried to deflect, pivoting to their reality show. I know. I watched it. We had good energy on College Hill. It was funny. So, strictly platonic? Shumpert didn't blink. Yeah, truly, sincerely. Look, any other season, maybe we let that slide. But he insisted nothing romantic, zero offensive plays. That denial might have held water if this wasn't Amber's signature move, getting caught in the frame with a player right when his contract with reality is falling apart. The smoke hadn't even cleared from the Terrence Ross situation before the next play was in motion, and honestly, she didn't need to say a word to confirm it. The pictures hit the timeline, the timestamps lined up, and the narrative wrote itself. Then you look at Monty Morris, she ran that play for a brief stint back in 2018. They were clocked at Universal Studios and a few local haunts, and right on cue, the noise started building around the perimeter. It didn't stick. But longevity isn't the goal here. It never is. The question isn't whether it lasts, it's whether she made her mark. She doesn't just date these guys. She gets inside the locker room chatter, disrupts the focus, and becomes the headline overtaking the box score. One dinner reservation, one well-timed paparazzi shot, and suddenly the entire league office is fielding questions about something that has nothing to do with basketball. Then she exits stage left, completely untouched by the fallout. It's a veteran move. But if you think that was the peak of the chaos, you haven't been paying attention. After making her rounds through the NBA in 2024, Amber switched fields and was seen leaving a celebrity softball game with NFL rookie C.J. Stroud, sending the internet into a frenzy. Look at the scouting report on her past roster. Kanye West, Wiz Khalifa, Machine Gun Kelly, 21 Savage. That's not just a dating history. That's a heavy resume of high-profile targets. Every single one of them documented in 4K resolution. She's got a foothold in adult content, reality TV, and the music industry, which means anyone standing next to her is signing up for immediate, unavoidable scrutiny. Mix that volatile energy with an NBA player's routine, and you're looking at a guaranteed distraction. But Amber is just the warm-up act for the next woman on this list. Because she didn't just target the league, she went straight for the throne and tangled up with Michael Jordan's son. With the other women, you can argue they just get caught up in the lifestyle. Larsa is different. Larsa isn't a bystander. She is the architect of the mess. You want to talk about shaking up the NBA? Larsa Pippen took the unwritten rules and set them on fire. To the casual fan, she's just Scottie Pippen's ex-wife, but if you look at the tape, her career is a masterclass in timing, leverage, and maximum collateral damage. Let's break down the tape on the divorce from Scottie Pippen, because that's where the foundation cracked. This wasn't a quiet offseason trade. This was a long, drawn-out contract dispute that kept them in the headlines for years. First filing in 2016, pulled back, filed again in 2018, and dragged out until finalization in 2021. Nearly 20 years of history dissolved in slow motion. But the box score doesn't show the locker room tension. There was a lot of friction happening away from the cameras. Scottie was vocal about the distraction, claiming she was chasing the spotlight, putting fame over the family unit, and making moves that embarrassed the Pippen name. And when you see her next move, you start to understand his frustration. Most people would take a season off to regroup. Not Larsa. She went straight into the paint and linked up with Malik Beasley. The kicker? Beasley was still on an active roster with a wife at home. Photos of them holding hands hit the wire, and his wife, Montana Yao, didn't wait for the replay. She filed for divorce the day before their 5th anniversary. That's a cold finish, but she wasn't done. Out of nowhere, she's spotted with Marcus Jordan. Yeah, the son of the man who won 6 rings with her ex-husband. They didn't hide it. January 2023. They go official on Instagram, posting up at Marcus's trophy room store for Valentine's Day, captions loaded with heart emojis like it was normal. The reaction from the stands was immediate. People called it foul. Marcus is the son of Scottie's greatest teammate. Larsa likely watched this kid grow up in the stadium tunnels. That dynamic alone made everyone uncomfortable. It crossed a line that most people didn't even know existed until she stepped over it. It got so loud that someone finally put a microphone in front of Michael Jordan and asked him point blank if he was okay with this. He didn't dance around it. He dropped a flat, hard no. But the word inside the circle was that his disappointment ran much deeper. Insiders say MJ was baffled that Marcus would make that play. He even allegedly commented that he felt bad for Larsa's kids, having to watch their mother play this game in public. And just like the Pippen situation, the relationship with Marcus was unstable, constant substitutions on and off the court. One minute they're all over the feed, the next they're unfollowing each other, scrubbing the evidence, and going silent. Then, just as quickly, they're back on, and suddenly there's a promise ring in the picture and rumors of a long-term contract extension. But by July 2024, the front office finally shut it down. They waived the relationship for good, ending a chaotic run that started as just friends and ended as a national spectacle. And yet, Larsa doesn't sit on the bench. In 2025, she's already back in the rotation, this time with former pro Jeff Kobe. They've already made the red carpet walk, signaling to the league that she's active and back in the starting lineup. Sources say they're ring shopping and talking about the future, proving that no matter how much heat she took for the last few seasons, she plays by her own clock. Now, if you think Larsa is wild for recycling the roster, Drea Mikkel is operating in a completely different bracket. Larsa is living in the moment. Drea? She's been scouting these prospects since they were playing AAU ball. Her history with NBA talent hits a different nerve because when her name pops up next to a player, nobody is shocked. They're just tired. It's like hearing the same walk-up music for the 10th time in a row. You know exactly what's coming next. That familiarity is exactly why the vibe shifted when she went public with Jalen Green. It wasn't a celebration. It was a concern. Let's keep it real. When that news broke in 2023, nobody said, "Good for them." The collective reaction was a confused, wait, her? It wasn't about Jalen's fame level, and it wasn't about who she's allowed to date. The backlash started when fans looked at the timeline and realized this wasn't a chance meeting. This felt calculated, long-term. And the first red flag was the age gap, which did a lot of heavy lifting. Drea has over 10 years on Jalen. When you put those numbers side by side, the internet starts asking questions you don't want answered. But you have to look at the roster history. Drea isn't new to this. She's been navigating NBA circles for a long time. When photos surfaced of her at Jalen's games back when he was still a teenager, the narrative shifted. It looked less like support and more like scouting. She was tracking the investment before he even went pro. And when the heat turned up, she didn't back off. She doubled down. She got pregnant. That is the ultimate veteran move. She locked in an 18-year contract with guaranteed money. Even if the relationship tanks, she is tethered to that bank account for 2 decades. The math works out perfectly for her. That is her brand. And judging by her demeanor, she wasn't surprised by the public outcry one bit. She knew exactly how the play would run, and she ran it anyway, zero hesitation. This isn't her rookie season. She has been in these streets before. Drea was linked to Gilbert Arenas back in the day. That is a completely different era of the NBA. We are talking about the Wild West days with one of the most volatile personalities in league history. Official or not, that history sticks. When you have been in the mix that long, people notice. You keep showing up in different eras like a time traveler, eventually the fans are going to call it what it is. Then you factor in the background check. Her history in the adult industry. How long was she actually in that life? I stripped for a few years. It was off and on, just whenever I needed something. She owns it. But let's be real, Drea's just the warm-up act. The next name on the list changes the stakes entirely. This goes way beyond player relationships. This was a betrayal that fractured actual families. It flipped the culture upside down. Years later, we are still feeling the aftershocks of this one. It gets messy. The Jordyn Woods situation wasn't just drama, it was a demolition. It was one of those rare moments where the entire internet stopped cold and picked a side. And the crazy part? She wasn't an outsider chasing clout. She was already inside. VIP access, family dinners, lived in the house. She was inner circle. Before the NBA chaos, Jordyn was basically Kylie Jenner's shadow. They were a package deal. Lived together, traveled together. If you saw Kylie, you saw Jordan. They were practically sisters. So when the news broke in 2019 about her and Tristan Thompson, it didn't just make headlines. It froze the cycle. We knew Tristan was a liability. That guy is a walking red flag. But Jordan? She was the last person anyone expected to cross that line. That is why it exploded. One party, one reckless night with an NBA player known for blowing up his own spot. Overnight, Jordan went from beloved best friend to public enemy number one. The entire Kardashian-Jenner machine cut her loose. Figure it out with Khloe. She tried to salvage it. She went on Red Table Talk to stop the bleeding. She claimed Tristan initiated it. Said she froze up. On the way out, he did kiss me. But by then, the truth didn't matter. The damage was locked in. When you go up against that family's PR team, you lose. The narrative was written in stone before she even sat down. But here is the pivot. She weathered the storm and ended up with Karl Anthony Towns. Fast forward 5 years. They are engaged. No scandals, no noise. It makes you step back and reevaluate the tape. Maybe Jordan wasn't the toxic element. Maybe she just got caught in the blast radius of a guy who thrives on chaos. Jordan's story is distinct because she wasn't hunting. She made one mistake and got dragged for it. The final woman on this list, she makes Jordan look like a saint. You cannot talk about predatory behavior in the NBA without talking about Brittany Renner. This wasn't an accident. She zeroed in on PJ Washington when he was a star at Kentucky. He was a teenager. She was pushing 30. The internet called it grooming. And honestly, it is hard to argue against that. She waited. The second he hit the league and signed that rookie contract, she executed the plan. She secured the pregnancy. The real mess started post-birth. The relationship collapsed before the ink was dry. It went from romance to warfare. Instantly, Washington was on Twitter venting, realizing way too late that he had been played. He walked right into a trap everyone else saw coming. And Brittany didn't even try to hide the strategy. She went on interviews bragging about her roster, casually dropping stats about being with 3 NBA players in a 24-hour window. She turns on the dash cam and breaks down a 24-hour stretch where she ran through a 3-man rotation, straight up admitting the volume landed her on the medical report with an infection. It wasn't just a leak. It was a voluntary release of information that would destroy most reputations. And somehow, she stayed on her feet. No damage to the brand, no loss of status. She took the contact and kept moving like nothing happened. The contrast was impossible to miss. P.J. is out there getting hammered by critics for his performance in the paint, fighting for every minute, while she's showcasing a championship-level lifestyle on social media. It was diabolical timing. Then the leverage game started. She allegedly pushed for a payout, threatening to escalate things by having him served with legal documents during a live broadcast. That's not just a distraction, that's sabotage. You can't execute at the highest level with that hanging over you. Imagine trying to check Luka or Steph, knowing a process server might be waiting to ambush you from the baseline the second the whistle blows. At the end of the day, the analytics don't lie, and neither does the footage. The distraction creates a deficit that talent can't overcome. We've watched this scouting report develop for years. The Khloe effect, the strategic moves by Drea, the Brittany Renner contract holdout. It's a copycat league. These aren't accidental matchups. It's a deliberate grind to stay on the roster and secure the bag. But we have to ask the hard question about the defense. Do we blame the opposition for running a successful play? Or do we blame the players for failing to recognize the trap and getting caught out of position?